Hello again. This is Satan's Trilogy. I am reading Book 2, Chapter 1, and this is reading number 56. I am the author and the narrator. Sit back, relax, and listen to the story as it unfolds. The carnival was very busy. It was, after all, a Saturday night. Having parked several blocks away, the girls walked up together. The sounds, the smells were strong in the air, and they were on the last visit. Esther ran ahead to the ticket booth, and as everyone caught up, Esther handed them their tickets for the night. There are 18 rides working tonight, and so we all have 18 tickets each. By the end of the night, we'll be exhausted. Esther was handing out the tickets as she spoke. Helen, if it is really late, I want you and our sisters to stay the night. I can guarantee a great breakfast in the morning. Esther smiled at Helen as she handed her the 18 tickets. You won't get an argument from me. I am already tired. Besides, I know that you cook a great breakfast, said Helen as she took the tickets. The evening was full of laughter and fun. Riley Grace enjoyed all of the rides and the cotton candy. Several of the girls shared a pork chop sandwich, only because they smelled so great as they walked about the carnival, and they couldn't resist the urge to buy one. Finally, it was time to leave. The tickets had been used and the various foods were consumed. All were tired. Esther pulled everyone into a bunch and spoke to them. Let's go back to my apartment. There are plenty of places to sleep. Anyone that wants to shower before sleeping can do so, and don't forget that tomorrow we'll have a fantastic breakfast. Esther smiled at everyone as they started walking to the cars. It was nearly midnight as the girls walked the several blocks back to the cars. The evening was damp and cool, but not cold. As they all walked and talked about various boys and subjects, giggling every minute of the way, 6 men stepped out from the shadows and blocked their path. A man standing behind the others spoke. You girls are out a bit late tonight, aren't you? He asked as he and his friends blocked the girls' path. Esther quickly responded, We have had a great night of fun, and now we're going home to collapse for the night. You and your friends need to get out of our way. The man was wearing a hooded shirt, and his face was not visible. He slowly spoke to Esther. I like young girls. My friends and I want to party with all of you. Esther's face turned solemn, and her relaxed stature changed as she moved away from Day and Riley Grace to step forward. Esther looked at the person standing in the back as if she could see him. Please step aside before you do something that you'll regret for the rest of your life. Esther stood in front of everyone and held her arms out to her side, motioning everyone to stand back. Moments went by, and then the voice said, You are Esther Saint. I am not interested in having a conflict with you. I apologize for having stood in your path. Please accept my apology. The 6 men quickly disappeared, and the night seemed again cold and damp, with little else to be concerned about. The girls reached the cars. Day jumped into the driver's seat of Esther's Mustang, and Riley Grace and Esther followed. Esther was in the front passenger seat. No one even mentioned the 6 men that had interrupted their walk. Instead, Riley Grace started to question Esther about what breakfast would be. Helen, Chris, and Eve had already pulled out of the parking lot in Helen's 1999 Camaro and were already down the road. She had found the car on Craigslist and paid only $2,400 for it. Esther had convinced Helen to let her cousins refurbish the car to a very dependable state. When Helen was given the Camaro back, she hardly recognized it. The car appeared to be new, but with the awesome vintage styling that Helen loved. Esther told Helen that her cousins had refused to accept any payment for the updates. It was an honor to provide this gift to one of Esther's friends, and so Helen drove an awesome Camaro that was the envy of many Camaro fanatics. Everyone would meet back at Esther's for some late-night fun. Helen had parked in the far back visitors' parking of the apartment complex. They and passengers arrived a bit after Helen, but parking closer meant everyone was arriving at the apartment's entrance at the same time. Esther led everyone back to the apartment door and slowly opened it. Always on the defense, Esther appraised the room before letting everyone back into the apartment. Once inside, everyone commented on the cool air. It had been rather hot and humid at the fairgrounds, and everyone felt the need for a shower. "I have a very short summer robe for everyone," said Esther as she opened a drawer and pulled out some wonderful cotton summer robes. Esther handed one to each girl with a comment about the robe. For Helen, Chris, and Eve, the robes were black with black threaded embossing on them of skulls. Raven and Riley Grace were given matching robes, black with dark embroidered dragons made with black thread. Esther handed her sister a dark silk robe, black with a flock of black ravens deeply embroidered on the material. Esther's robe matched Dave's. Everyone loved the robes and commented on the soft feel of the material. Esther was pleased that everyone liked the robes. Then she commented, "I have black silk panties too." Esther laughed. "Even if you don't like underwear, these will make you change your mind." Esther put the 6 pair on top of her dresser and handed Riley Grace some to wear as she commented, "You wear just slightly smaller panties, but you are close to our size. You'll get there." Esther smiled at Riley Grace. "I have a special dessert in mind for tonight. As a late-night snack, it is small but wonderful," commented Esther. "Some nights, it's nice to have something sweet before falling asleep." As Raven and Riley Grace stood in the kitchen watching Esther, the other 4 girls quickly undressed and headed to the shower. They had already told the others about how wonderful the size of Esther's shower was. They entered the shower, and when the shower heads turned on with warm water, they all started to giggle. It was for some reason hilarious that they all could fit in the shower at Esther's apartment. The girls continued to giggle the entire time they spent in the shower. In the kitchen, Esther pulled from the refrigerator a bowl with some batter in it. Esther had already started beating a textured griddle on the oven, large enough to cover 2 burners. Smiling, Esther had told Raven and Riley Grace, "I don't usually do late-night desserts, but tonight is special. We are all here, and this will be a memorable dessert." Esther spoke as she busied herself with the task of creating small waffle cups, which she intended to fill with a scoop of vanilla custard. They, Helen, Chris, and Eve returned to the kitchen area, all wearing their robes and underwear, feeling refreshed as they were very interested in the dessert that Esther had promised them. The aroma of vanilla and waffle cones filled the kitchen. They all showed intense interest. Seeing her sister and best friends in the robes she had given them, Esther smiled and immediately commented, "You all look wonderful. The robes look great on you." I knew they would. Pulling the last waffle from the griddle and placing it over a cup, Esther said, "All right, I can now use some help so that we'll all have dessert together." Riley Grace quickly spoke up, "Raven, I can help." Without waiting for Raven's response to Riley Grace's having volunteered her services, Esther said, "Of course you can. Please place one waffle dish on a plate and make one plate for each of us." Esther went to the freezer side of the fridge and pulled out a large bucket of vanilla custard. Grabbing a scoop from a kitchen drawer, Esther said, "This is the most wonderful vanilla custard that you will ever experience. Only one scoop goes into these waffle cups." Esther did the first one and then gave Riley Grace the scoop, told her, "We need 6 more just like this. Make them round and full." Esther handed Riley Grace the scoop. Handing Raven a clear plastic bottle with a pouring spout on top, Esther said, "Raven, please drizzle this caramel on top of the custard in a lotus blossom pattern like this." Raven watched Esther's moves and understood what she wanted. Esther went to the refrigerator and pulled out a bowl of cooled, creamy fudge. She went to the drawer and found a small melon scoop and quickly added a small dollop of fudge on top of the custard. Stepping back after the 3 girls finished, Esther quickly said, "Oh my gosh, they are so beautiful, and of course they are going to taste just as wonderful." Esther smiled as she and Raven and Riley Grace grabbed the small dishes and placed them at the table. Day, Chris, Eve, and Helen quickly sat at the table and started to spoon into the dessert. "Sister," said Day, "the waffle bowl is wonderful, as is the rest of the dessert, but where did the waffle bowl come from?" asked Day as she continued to eat her dessert. Smiling, Esther started a short story. "My father had a very close friend from France, and he was a great dessert chef. Why he followed my father, I am not certain, but one day he shared his recipe with me for waffle cones, which I made into small cups." Esther smiled and added, "This recipe is unequaled in the culinary world." Of course, that is only my opinion. Esther smiled as she broke into the waffle shell, holding the custard. Taking her first bite, Esther said, "I love great desserts. I enjoy great food, but I love great desserts." Esther continued to enjoy her dessert, as did everyone else. The door opened quickly and Brandy stood there saying goodnight to her date. "I really had a wonderful time, but I must say goodnight." Brandy was trying to close the door as her date pursued some more conversation. "I have to say goodnight. I am just exhausted. Thanks so much for a wonderful day." Brandy finally managed to close the door. Turning around, she found 7 girls looking at her. Not feeling the slightest bit of embarrassment, Brandy said, "Oh, a wonderful late-night girls' time." Smiling at everyone and recognizing all the faces, Brandy asked, "Can I join?" Riley Grace stood up quickly and said, "You are the missing piece of the puzzle. Of course you can join us. You are part of us." Brandy was already sitting down exploring the table and quickly commented, "Riley Grace, I love being part of the puzzle, even if I might be only one small piece." Brandy then quickly added, "What have you girls been eating?" Esther placed a small dessert in front of Brandy and said, "And Brandy, I prefer to think of myself as a chef, but as desserts go, this is probably my best." Brandy had already spooned into the dessert and quickly commented as Esther stopped talking, My God, you girls sure do know how to live. Brandy continued to eat her dessert. Everyone laughed and then continued to talk about several subjects at once. The evening's discussions overlapped each other as the girls all enjoyed the custard dishes in a waffle bowl. Brandy finished the dessert and said, "That was the most enjoyable dish of sweetness that I have ever enjoyed." Sitting back in her chair, Brandy realized that she was the only girl not in sleep clothing. "Maybe I should put on my pajamas and come back." Brandy stood up and Esther quickly followed. "I have a wonderful summer robe for you, Aunt Brandy. I think you will love it, and some undies if you like." Esther pulled some items from the hallway linen closet and handed them to Brandy. "This nighttime robe is silk and will feel great, as will the silk undies. You were born in the year of the snake, so I had a snake embroidered into the fabric for you. The snake represents wisdom." Esther smiled at her aunt as she handed the clothing over to her. Brandy immediately took them and commented to Esther, "You seem to always be ready for the moment." Brandy quickly hugged Esther, gave her a kiss on the cheek, then ran to her room and reappeared within moments wearing her new nightwear. Eve saw Brandy first, and her mouth dropped open. Then Helen, Riley Grace, and Chris noticed her at the same time. The laughter had suddenly stopped as Brandy approached the table. Raven and Esther were smiling at Brandy. They quickly spoke. "I knew you would look good in that robe." Helen quickly interrupted. "Are you kidding, Aunt Brandy? You are drop-dead gorgeous in that outfit. I have dreams about women that look like you." Everyone turned to Helen, then quickly broke out laughing. Brandy was laughing too. Once she managed to compose herself, Brandy added, "Look, you girls are all beautiful, and if you think I look good, then I am really flattered. It's nice to look good in clothes. I love clothes." Brandy smiled with emphasis. "I have a walk-in closet now, and that is something every woman needs, and I am doing my best to fill it." Brandy then added, "It's going to take a while. It is a very big closet." They spoke up. "I obviously have a limited wardrobe. I wear black, and everything that I have goes together. So I guess, for now, my small closet fits me just fine." Brandy laughed. "Well, you make a good point. But mark my words, the day will come that you'll want a much larger closet." The girls continued to discuss closets and clothes and how best to organize them. The discussion lasted for over an hour. It seemed that most were in agreement on keeping the blouses and jeans separate, but they couldn't agree on whether or not summer and winter clothes needed separated. As Riley Grace asked a question about purses to Brandy, Brandy let loose with a very large yawn. "Oh, excuse me. I guess the day is catching up with me. This has been a long day for me. Jacob took me to Paris for the day. It was wonderful. The food was great, and we had some great wines. We went to the top of the Eiffel Tower and viewed the city of Paris for nearly an hour. It is funny. I took French in school for 2 years and could barely remember a handful of words. It's a good thing Jacob is fluent in French. His mother is French and insisted that children learn French as children." Esther was listening to Brandy speak, and as she listened, she felt that the day for Brandy didn't seem as memorable as it should have been. It was obvious to Esther that Dr. Song had not won Aunt Brandy's heart, not yet anyway. Riley Grace was the first to comment. "You were in Paris?" Brandy loved the expression on Riley Grace's face whenever they were together. "Oh yes, Jacob had told me he had a surprise for me and told me to be prepared for an all-day excursion. I knew it would be something big. When he asked me to have my passport with me, Riley Grace again spoke up. Was it wonderful to be at the top of the Eiffel Tower? And Brandy quickly answered, yes, it was wonderful. I was in the Eiffel Tower at the top. It was a wonderful day, but somehow it seemed to lack something. And Brandy made a big yawn and added, Jacob is a great guy, and he's been trying very hard to please me, but something is missing. Brandy stopped with that and turned to Esther, then told her directly, you know, Esther, something was missing. Do you know what I mean? Esther was positioned directly across from Brandy. She responded, and Brandy, I know what you mean, but I don't have any answers. Friendships, family, and love have so many variations in life, and since we all have different needs, we often go different directions to find happiness. But trust me, Aunt Brandy, I know what you mean. Brandy yawned again and looked at Esther, then commented, I know that the clock is ticking, but I just don't care. If I can't do it right, I don't even want to try. And again Brandy yawned. I'm so sorry, girls, but it must be my bedtime. It was wonderful seeing all of you again. Brandy stood and hugged Esther, giving her a kiss on the cheek. Then Day received the same. Riley Grace came forward and received a hug, as did Helen, Chris, and Eve. Raven was last, and she hugged Brandy, holding her close for a moment before offering a few words. And Brandy, you are wise not to settle for less than what you are looking for. I want to follow your example. Raven kissed Aunt Brandy on the cheek and stood slightly back as Esther and Day helped her to bed. Brandy welcomed the help from Esther and Day as she let them guide her to the bedroom and undress her. Brandy was totally wiped out, and alcohol had a little, if anything, to do with it. As Brandy snuggled into her bed, Day walked away saying, I want to look that good when I'm her age. Esther's only comment was, who wouldn't? As she closed the bedroom door. Well, that is the end of reading 56, and that was the end of chapter 1 for book 2. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, please be safe and take care.